I'll start out by saying that SCAG is the largest MPO in the country. We cover 198 cities, 6 counties, and 19 million residents. Unlike a lot of other MPOs, we actually are strictly a planning agency, so most of the authority rests with our counties and cities. So we work more like a trusted broker between the counties, cities, and the state to try and achieve some of these goals. MPOs, for the most part, plan the transportation system, the freeways, rail, and transit systems. But the state of California also has strengthened our role in land use planning in order to try and achieve GHG reductions and a closer link between our transportation investments and our land use investments. So as I bring up the slides, I'll say that one thing that we talk about a lot in urban planning is trying to solve more than one problem with each solution. So a lot of times we have very, very difficult challenges. Right now, the housing crisis is a very good example. Our plans strictly deal with future growth and construction when it comes to land use. So one of the things that residents might be scared of is when we talk about sustainability, we talk about increasing density around transportation investments. We don't have the authority, nor would we be very interested in, replacing existing housing. What we're talking about are goals for all of the new construction that needs to take place. And the housing crunch is entirely a self-made problem, but it's been growing over the last 2 decades. So basically, after the 1980s, housing production in the state declined dramatically. There was a recent study that the 1967 general plan for the city of Los Angeles, if you compare it with the current zoning regulations, has lost 6 million units worth of capacity. So basically that was when they froze single-family residential neighborhoods in place in order to preserve community character. They also cut off the pipeline of redevelopment. So whereas there's a lot of streets in Los Angeles that have single-family homes and duplexes and triplexes and then small lot apartment structures, all of that was frozen in place. And so one of the things we're advocating for is we have a crisis. We're not saying that any one type of land use is good or bad, but we need to address the housing crisis. And there's a saying in business that you have cheap, good, or fast, pick 2. You can never have all 3. And when it comes to housing, you can preserve community character, you can preserve open space, or you can preserve affordability. You can only do 2 of those at any given time. So something's going to get lost in the shuffle. So as part of our regional plan, the other thing I need to point out is our board is one of the largest in the is the largest in the country. I think we have about 80 members on our regional council. Most other boards have anywhere from 10 to 20. And so in some ways we almost act like a Senate at certain times. And so when it comes to resiliency, SCAG was a sponsor of a road tour that was done with Lucy Dunn. Lucy Jones, who is a premier seismologist in the region. And so we sponsored her road show to go out to the cities and regions, and elected members were very surprised at some of the implications. So we think about the immediate impact of a huge seismic event, but the knock-on effect to the water supply, the energy supply, heat impacts if it were to happen in the summer was very dramatic. And going back to what I said about trying to solve multiple problems with our solutions, there's something that comes about a lot when we talk about transportation planning and land use planning, and that's a term from biology called a monoculture. So a monoculture is when one life form kind of dominates an ecosystem, and it may be the best suited life form, but if there's a shock to the system, it's not resilient. It can't adapt. And right now, what we have in too many areas in Southern California is a monoculture of single-family homes, spread out retail destinations, and mandatory automobile use. So you just can't get anywhere if you don't have a car. So there's nothing wrong with automobile use per se. It's when you don't have any options. And so I'll give you some examples. These actually aren't on the slides. When Hurricane Sandy hit in the East Coast, for weeks afterward, there was a lot of interesting press in the areas of electric vehicles and in the areas of active transportation, meaning walking and biking. And what we saw was that neighborhood groups had formed, and a lot of people who are very active in bicycling communities volunteered, and because of the fact that there's something called a cargo bike, which is kind of a long bicycle that can actually haul things, they volunteered and were actually stepping in and transporting goods and stuff like that and water for their communities. The other interesting thing about Sandy was that power was restored before the roads were cleared and gasoline stations could be replenished. So EV owners started volunteering in their communities because they could use their car long before gasoline vehicles were able to refuel. And so again, you see when you have a diversity of options, you have more solutions to problems. So what we're doing right now is we're in the final stretch of the mid to final stretch of our regional transportation plan, sustainable community strategy, and we're down here. We're going to be releasing the plan on November 7th, so we're scurrying around the offices, putting final touches on data and narrative, and we have been taking this out to the public and to our elected officials. We kind of improved a lot on our public outreach. In many ways, I'd almost say SCAG is a G2G enterprise. It's a government-to-government agency. Not a lot of people in the public know what we do, but we really tried to get out there, and we had a huge increase in the number of survey responses and engagements that we had because instead of just holding meetings and having people come to us, we went out to community events. We partnered with community-based organizations to get out into the community. And so again, you can see a lot more. We worked with other organizations to kind of reach their particular communities throughout the region. We tried to get the word out that the plan was really, instead of talking about kind of the technical details about congestion levels and ridership and particular types of housing form, we really tried to make the plan accessible to people and just kind of talk to them about what do you see in the future for the region. And so some of the themes were obvious. Every RTP SCS cycle, this one's called Connect Socal, has a lot of differences, but clearly housing affordability and availability is prime right now, and also transportation options. We've come a long way in understanding that if you can afford a much cheaper house, but you have a 1.5-hour drive to every work, and you factor in the costs of fueling and insurance and depreciation on your vehicle, we really need to think about the housing transportation combination in terms of costs, not just what's your mortgage payment. And we also talked a lot about, as we increase density, by definition, newer buildings are going to be more expensive and going to be targeted to market-raised housing. So how do we ensure affordable housing in a community? How do we maintain existing affordable housing so we don't have displacement and gentrification as the plans are rolled out? And so again, we had a great diversity in terms of survey responses. Here are some of the topics, top challenges. Affordability, again, huge and very pressing issue. But we also still see air quality as very important. And you see in areas like Riverside County and in Orange County, traffic congestion and open space loss. So Orange County really has started to look at preserving open space. And transportation improvements, we're still looking at a kind of balanced portfolio, but needing a lot of improvement in more local issues. People understand the freeways are congested because we've got a lot of people going places. What about the congestion and conditions that we face in our local neighborhoods? And when it comes to location for new growth, we've done a lot more research in this plan about preserving open space, not just as a natural benefit, but also we're looking at the wildfire risks involved with building farther and farther out into the wildfire zones. As we've seen an increase in wildfires, a lot of the damages come from what's called the urban wildland interface, and so that's the areas where houses are growing further and further into natural habitats. So the plan is really put together from local plans. We receive tons of data from the cities and counties and kind of funnel it all up into the regional transportation plan and the sustainable community strategy. And so what we're looking at this time is key priority areas for growth and economic development, the regional strategies that work throughout different counties and how those strategies might be implemented in Orange County versus Riverside County versus Los Angeles County, and an implementation vision that shares the benefits but also the responsibilities. We're really working closely with our cities and counties to say, we have these challenges, you need to come to the table and be part of the solutions. And Lastly, getting a little far off the topic, but we have here a number of different investment areas that we're going to be pursuing once the plan is adopted. And we see system preservation and resilience of the system as very important. Again, going back to the concept of monoculture, when we have a stronger transit network and we have a stronger active transportation network, then we have options when roadways go down or are impacted by congestion. We're also looking at technology to look at smart corridors so that Caltrans and local jurisdictions can have implementation plans for when a freeway is blocked. Cities don't really like Caltrans sending a ton of traffic onto their local streets, but if we can do it in a coordinated and intelligent way and also use the city's local traffic signals to get that traffic moving through, we can address those kind of incidents a lot better. And we have a large range of different types of investment programs that we're going to pursue. These are more of these regional initiatives, housing supportive infrastructure. As the MPO, we're going to be heavily involved in all of the state funding that comes down to improve planning and improve implementation of housing plans. And just wanted to rocket through all of that really quickly so we can get back to the program in terms of seismic issues. But thank you for your time.